Tonight, tackling vaping. Warnings tighter regulations are needed to crack down on illegal e-cigarettes, which harm people's health and the planet.
These are no good for the environment, and certainly no good for the youth. And if we don't do something about it now in June, we're going to be talking about big puffs being the issue next year.
We know there are unknown health risks, and so we don't want young people to be using these devices.
Also making the headlines, sextortion on Snapchat. Police are investigating after 8-year-old school pupils in Edinburgh were targeted with pornography. John Swinney calls for unity against the far right. The Reform Party says it's desperation from a First Minister out of ideas.
And tonight's sport comes from Rugby Park, where Barry Ferguson takes charge of his first match as Rangers boss as his team face Kilmarnock in the Premiership.
I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The number of teenagers vaping is a growing health problem in Scotland, and governments in Holyrood and Westminster are both trying to tackle it. A ban on disposable, single-use vapes is coming in from June. But there's a warning about a new problem. So-called big puff vapes are about to become a big issue. Scotland's main vape manufacturer and retailer, VPZ, has told STV News unregulated large devices will drive youth vaping and harm the planet if they're not properly regulated. Vanessa Taff has this special report.
It's an issue that's sucking up a lot of political attention. Driving this campaign, the crackdown on disposable and potentially dangerous vapes. This manufacturer creates a cocktail of vape flavourings. Much like putting petrol in a car, these hoses contain the strictly regulated ingredients that go into their vape liquids.
We've gone from making a couple of thousand bottles a day to making over 1 million units a month. So we've scaled up quite well since we moved in here. We're currently adding another new automated line at the end of this week, and we've got another one coming in the summer. And yeah, kind of gearing up for all the regulation changes that are coming down the pipeline.
More than 5 million adults in the UK are vapers. Over 8 million devices are incorrectly thrown away or recycled every week. Last year, across the UK, almost 1 million children aged 11 to 17 tried vaping.
That's illegal. That one here is illegal.
Vapes brought in from foreign importers contain different, often higher, nicotine and liquid capacities. Regulating and recycling these devices is a challenge.
I mean, none of these are actually legally registered.
Now, out of this lineup of vapes, 4 of them are illegal but are still sold in some stores in the UK. But take this one, for example. This is a 2ml vape, but under the new regulations is about to be made illegal. But if you take its big brother over here, it's 12ml, so 6 times the legal amount, but it will be okay to sell. And it's this loophole that's causing some concern.
As if we were worried about youths getting addicted to 2ml in nicotine, what chance are we giving them if we're saying at a 12ml or a 24ml or a 50ml they can buy? And there is a reason why they're marketed saying puffs on the front. These are no good for the environment, and certainly no good for the youth. And if we don't do something about it now in June, we're going to be talking about big puffs being the issue next year.
The UK government legislation plans to end youth vaping and the use of disposable devices. Often considered a better alternative to cigarettes, the government have announced plans to research the long-term health effects of vaping on children.
Over the last few years, we've seen a massive spike driven by disposable vapes in the main. Over half of young people who vape use a disposable. And we've seen regular levels of vaping go up to around 7%, which doesn't sound high, but we know there are unknown health risks, and so we don't want young people to be using these devices.
Disposable single-use vapes will be banned in Scotland from June. The Scottish Government say they're working with the UK Government to ensure the definition of single-use vapes captures all products. Until then, so-called big puffs are a big problem, one that can't be thrown away. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Meanwhile, there's a warning for parents and children about online criminals using Snapchat. An Edinburgh school has discovered a pupil who's just 8 years old has been targeted by someone sending explicit threatening messages. One mum found her daughter, who attends Gilmerton Primary, being messaged on Snapchat by a predator trying to persuade her to send indecent images. Amy Flett reports.
At the school gate during pick-up time today at Gilmerton Primary School, parents are still digesting the news that an 8-year-old pupil has been a victim to online sextortion.
It's very worrying because you think to yourself, well, if this is what it's like now, what's it going to be like in the future for them? It just makes you worry.
First thing I done was check my daughter's phone and laptop and the iPad. I think it's absolutely disgusting and I hope that whoever's done it gets found.
In a letter to parents seen by STV News, the head teacher said the school is aware of a person impersonating pupils on social media, specifically Snapchat, and said it is working with Police Scotland. Parents are now being urged to check their children's social media accounts and to screenshot, block and report any suspicious accounts to the police. Experts say that while it's unusual for children of primary school age to be targeted online, child sextortion is becoming frighteningly common.
It's incredibly concerning. It's unusual for a child of this age to be targeted in a sextortion case because the most recent increase that we've seen has been a massive increase involving 14 to 18-year-old boys. But we do see children of this age and at primary school experiencing a lot of online child sexual abuse.
To use Snapchat, children should be over the age of 13. Police Scotland said an investigation is underway after receiving several reports this month relating to indecent images being shared on an online platform in Edinburgh. Education, Children and Families convener, Councillor Joan Griffiths, said she was shocked and extremely upset to hear that a child had been subjected to this and disgusted that anyone could be capable of such a thing. She added that the council is offering full support to the child and her family while reminding all parents to remain vigilant. Amy Flett, STV News, Gilmerton.
The First Minister is calling on political and civic leaders to unite against the far right and the Reform leader Nigel Farage. In a news conference at Bute House, John Swinney announced a summit to show Scotland stands against what he describes as the politics of fear and despair. The Reform Party say it's desperate stuff. Our political editor Colin Mackay joins us. So Colin, what did the First Minister say?
This is the toughest political attack on Nigel Farage that I've actually seen. The First Minister threw a lot more than milkshake at the Reform Party leader. He said Scottish values were under threat from Nigel Farage. He said he was repulsed by Farage and the far right. He called him an apologist for Putin. He described his argument against migrants as fundamentally racist. So the First Minister is organising a summit in April, calling on party leaders in the Scottish Parliament, churches, trade unions to come together to protect the country from the bigotry that Farage represents, he says.
I am very concerned about the rise of far-right politics. And I want to use my office as First Minister to work with other parliamentary parties to set out clearly and boldly to the public what we can agree on as the norms and the values of our society, and how we can protect those, because I think they are under threat. I think they're under very, very vigorous threat from the politics of Farage.
So Colin, how have Reform responded?
Well, first of all, they deny that they're a right-wing party. They describe Putin as a despicable aggressor against the Ukraine. They say this is desperate stuff from the First Minister to deflect from the SNP's awful record in government, they say.
We're clearly doing something right. The Holyrood bubble is absolutely, bricking themselves, to say it nicely, about the fact that Reform has come on the scene, and we are clearly shaping the idea of where Scottish politics is going. I think all the other opposition parties have to have a serious think about John Swinney's answer today of some sort of anti-democratic roundtable and come and have a conversation with us.
Now, the Prime Minister launched a scathing attack on Reform in his Scottish conference speech at the weekend, but the First Minister stepped that up a fair bit today. The invites to the summit haven't gone out yet, but the STUC, the Church of Scotland, have said they'll be there. not quite sure whether the Conservative leader, Russell Finlay, will be there. He says that he doesn't want to take part in another SNP talking shop. Reform, though, is taking votes from all the mainstream parties. They got 10% in a council by-election in Kilmarnock last week, almost 23% in one in Bannockburn last month. Polls suggest they could get quite a few MSPs elected next year, and that's really put the wind up all of the parties here. So today, John Swinney says he's calling out Nigel Farage.
Colin at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. Foreign Office staff working in Scotland have been reassured cuts to the UK's foreign aid budget are not expected to lead to job losses. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is taking money away from the UK's foreign aid budget and is using the cash to increase spending on defence. Speaking after meetings with staff in Glasgow, the chairwoman of the House of Commons International Development Committee said their skills remain critical.
It's caused a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, but hopefully with us being up here, we've been able to reassure them just how valued they are. I've just spoken to the Development Minister. I have told her just how important our staff are here, and she heard that loud and clear. She knows what a valued team we've got, and I think she's coming up here in the next few days to make that message in person.
Evidence relating to the PPE firm linked to Baroness Michelle Mone will be heard in private, the chair of the UK COVID inquiry has ruled. Next week, the inquiry is due to begin 4 weeks of hearings into decisions to buy personal protective equipment. Lady Mone and her husband have faced controversy over the so-called VIP lane contracts granted to some suppliers during the pandemic. A Holyrood committee is seeking the views of voters on plans to allow MSPs to be sacked. The bill would provide a route for constituents to recall MSPs. Currently, they can only lose their seats if they're sentenced to 12 months or more in prison. The bill would lower the threshold in Holyrood to 6 months. BP is slashing spending on net zero transition businesses by almost £4 billion. The fossil fuel giant says it still hopes to become a net zero company, but will only spend up to £1.6 billion a year on projects aimed at the energy transition. It's also increasing oil and gas investment by around 20%. The family of Sheku Bayo is asking the Chief Constable to reinvestigate criminal complaints made against police officers. Sheku Bayo's sister met with Joe Farrell this morning in what was described as a robust but brutally honest meeting. The father of two died after being restrained by officers in Kirkcaldy in 2015. The Deputy First Minister says an inquiry will not be extended to examine why no prosecutions were brought. Protesters are calling for the Home Office to reform a policy they say leaves asylum seekers frozen out of work. Those within the asylum system are currently given around £8 per week for essential living costs. But campaigners say this leads to many living in poverty for years while their skills are wasted. Tara Fitzpatrick reports.
A nurse, a chef and even an air traffic controller. These are just some of the professions and skill sets asylum seekers put on display in Glasgow today. But while stuck in the asylum system process, these skills can't be put to use.
They're just ready to contribute to society and be able to work. So we have people who are accountants, teachers and artists, chefs, and unfortunately they've been stuck in this limbo for many years where they have to be dependent on the asylum support given by the government.
What was that like for you?
Clemence, a construction worker and bus driver, came to Scotland over 3 years ago after being forced to flee Namibia due to persecution. He found himself in the asylum system for years, unable to work or plan for the future while his claim was being processed.
I was very, very depressed because I can't do anything. I will just, from Monday to Saturday, I'll just stay at home. Yeah, even that money was not enough for transportation. If I want to come to city centre maybe 3 times a day, I can't because that money won't be enough. I'll just stay at home every day doing nothing. I want to show my skills because I'm a bus driver and I know the UK government, they need our bus drivers.
Lift the ban now and here. Lift the ban now and here.
He joined campaigners in Glasgow today, calling for the Home Office to lift a 2-decade-long ban on working for asylum seekers.
Since the ban was introduced in 2002, those within the asylum system have been left dependent on the state for support. For those in self-catered accommodation, that allowance currently stands at £49.18 per week. For those housed in hotels, the weekly allowance is £8.86. Towards the end of 2024, there were over 133,000 people waiting for an initial decision on their asylum application. Of those, 60% had been waiting for more than 6 months, and nearly 2/3 were waiting over a year.
Lift the ban!
Calls to lift the ban were echoed by campaigners in Westminster today, but the Home Office say they currently have no plans to review the policy.
Lift the ban!
The campaign will continue, but for now the skills of asylum seekers could be left hanging on the rack. Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Glasgow.
The doctor who carried out the post-mortem on a baby who died after contracting a toxic form of MRSA says the infection likely played a material role in her death. Sophia Smith was just 11 days old when she died at Glasgow's Royal Hospital for Children in April 2017. However, a fatal accident inquiry also heard the severity of Sophia's complex illness meant death was the most likely outcome, even if antibiotics had been introduced at an earlier stage. Crew members on board the world's only seagoing paddle steamer were not trained to prevent the boat crashing into a pier. The Waverley collided with a jetty in Brodick in the Isle of Arran in September 2020, injuring 21 passengers and 3 crew. An investigation found the specific skills and techniques weren't formally documented, nor included in training before the vessel hit the pier. A busy night of football ahead. Rahman is at Rugby Park, where Rangers' new interim management team are in charge for the first time.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
A very good evening from Rugby Park, where tonight a new era begins for Rangers as Barry Ferguson takes charge of his first match as head coach as his team take on Kilmarnock in the Premiership. Ferguson, who was appointed on Monday following the sacking of Philippe Clement, has made it clear he expects to see improved performances from the players. He says they need to show more energy, more desire and win games consistently, but he knows how tough a challenge Killie will be on their own patch tonight.
We're going to a place, they're not blinded, they totally know what they're going to be going into. They're coming up against an experienced manager who I've got a lot of respect for, and also he's got a real good team as well. They've got a physical side to them, but they've also got players that can hurt you. So we're briefed on that, we're ready for that, and I just can't wait for tomorrow night to get going.
Well, Barry Ferguson and Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes were teammates at Rangers. Killie come into tonight's match following their 1-0 loss to Aberdeen at the weekend, but earlier in the season they defeated Rangers here at Rugby Park in the Premiership.
We feel we're going to have to do a lot of what we did the last time out here when we beat them earlier on in the season. And that's a good reference for the players. We know it can be done. Equally, that day, our distances were good, we were competitive. I thought we had bags of confidence and personality in the game. And as opposed to when we played them at Ibrox, we were far too open and we gave their better players too much scope to play.
There's plenty of interest in this one. Kick-off here between Kilmarnock and Rangers is at 8 o'clock. Well, tonight's game is one of 5 on a busy night in the Premiership at Tynecastle. Hearts take on St Mirren, and Jamie Borthwick is there for us. Jamie.
Yes, Rahman, 6th takes on 7th in the Premiership here tonight. It's a good old-fashioned 6-pointer for two teams with big designs on securing a top 6 finish. Hearts' form since the turn of the year has been outstanding. Just 1 defeat in 9 games. That continued with a 2-1 victory over St Johnstone at McDermott Park on Sunday. And St Mirren make the trip east to Edinburgh tonight in huge confidence. The shock victory over Rangers 2-0 at Ibrox on Saturday, and it is the Saints who hold a 1-point advantage in the Premiership table ahead of tonight's match.
I just think it fills everyone
with confidence and belief. When you're performing well and winning games, that's what it breeds. And this is our next opportunity, being at home, to keep our good form going. And we don't want to miss that opportunity. And that was a message before the St Johnstone game. We've got 9 points to play for in this week, and by the end of the week, the league could look, a lot more positive for us.
We've got our just rewards for Saturday, but we've reiterated to the players that if we don't follow that up with a good result on Wednesday, then it doesn't go to waste. But it maybe isn't as important as it seemed after the game. So it's important that we build on that. 6 games to go. We're in a very, very good position, and we're looking forward to it.
And these teams have met 3 times already this season. It's 1 win apiece in the league, and that Scottish Cup tie went all the way to penalties, with Hearts coming out on top. There's no fresh injury concerns for either side. Cammy Devlin is still sidelined for Hearts with a concussion. Mark O'Hara is in line to make his 100th appearance for St Mirren tonight. And kick-off here in the capital is at 7:45.
Jamie at Tynecastle, thanks very much for that. Well, like Hearts, Hibs are going very well in the Premiership. David Gray's side take on Dundee United at Tannadice, and Chris Harvey is there.
Oh, good evening, Rahman from Tannadice. Hibs arrive here full of confidence. David Gray's side are on a 13-match unbeaten run, and they pulled off a massive victory at the weekend, defeating Celtic at Easter Road. They currently sit 5th in the Premiership.
The players are in a real good place. They're enjoying training, they're coming in with a smile on their face, which is something that there's no better feeling as a player if you're winning games and the confidence is high and momentum's high. But at the same time, you're always guarding against making sure you don't get complacent. That's something we talk about a lot.
Well, it really has been a remarkable upturn in form for Hibs. At the start of the season, they were rock bottom and looked to be fighting for their very Premiership survival. Now, they're in the top 6, in contention for a European spot, and very much a team on the up. This one gets underway here at Tannadice at 7:45.
And a win for Hibs tonight would see them go above United into 4th. Elsewhere, Motherwell, whose new manager Michael Vinner started his reign with a defeat to Dundee United at the weekend, are at home to Dundee, and St Johnstone welcome Ross County. Well, Celtic's lead at the top of the Premiership now stands at 16 points following a 5-1 thrashing of Aberdeen last night, and manager Brendan Rodgers admits that Daisen Maeda is likely to be attracting interest from other clubs. Maeda scored the first and last goals in the rout over the Dons to take his tally to 25 for the season. Rodgers says the forward is a great symbol for the team and the collective.
Your window to sport. C.R. Smith sponsors STV Sport.
And that, folks, is just about all of your sport for me, live from Rugby Park, where Kilmarnock face Rangers for Barry Ferguson's first game in charge. Plenty of intrigue here. John.
Brahman, thank you. Now, Sean, how's the weather?
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Now, if I just step to the side and we have a look at what's coming out of the US and Canada, normally low pressure systems would just barrel their way across the Atlantic. Lots of wind and rain. Good news for us, though, because this high pressure comes to the rescue. It says, and the low pressure heads away to the north, to Greenland and Iceland. So it's there. We're going to see plenty of wind and rain this weekend. For us, the weather getting a little bit better, drier and brighter. Most of the showers easing as well. Now, today it's not been too great for many central and southern parts. A lot of cloudy, damp weather. Chilly as well, 5 degrees. A little bit of snow over higher ground as well. But through tonight, that all clears away southwards. Drier, clearer weather. A cold one as well. And a few puddles, dampness around could give us 1 or 2 icy patches with temperatures fairly close to freezing by the end of the night. Tomorrow morning, for most of us, dry and sunny to start the day. There will be a scattering of showers, mainly across the Highlands, Argyll and Bute, wintry over higher ground as well. A few of those maybe getting down to Stirling, Glasgow, parts of Lanarkshire and Ayrshire by the end of the day, but even here, quite isolated in the afternoon. For many of us tomorrow, there'll be plenty of dry weather with sunny spells, temperatures about 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. A lot of dry weather, some brightness around on Friday, temperatures still about 8 or 9 degrees, breezier weather the Hebrides, and there will be a weak weather front coming in here, giving us some light and patchy rain by the end of the day. Into Saturday, Saturday, that weather front clears away southwards, so there will still be some shower outbreaks of light and patchy rain in southern parts to start with, but hopefully skies brightening in the afternoon. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
The annual Glasgow Film Festival begins today with new movies, documentaries, talks and big screen classics being shown across the city until the 9th of March. Tim Roth, Jack Lowden, Takahiro Hira and actress Koki are amongst those who star in Tornado, a thriller shot in Scotland which opens the festival tonight. Laura Boyd sat down with the stars to find out all about it.
Koki, you play Tornado. When they came to you with this role, what drew you to it? Why did you fancy taking it on?
First of all, when I read the script and had the audition, I was really captivated by how quickly the story was evolving and changing, and how quickly Tornado really became someone from not knowing her true identity to a really strong and powerful woman.
Tak, for you, what drew you to it? Because it's quite an unusual premise, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, samurai in 18th century Scotland doing a puppet show. I mean, where did you get that from?
Try to build a mythic world of Britain that could have existed that hasn't really been put on film, and then fill it with nutters like Tim Roth.
Just from the actor's perspective, I remember meeting the Maniacs for the first time. I think I met most of them in costume.
Probably, yeah.
Probably on the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And you see that lot coming at you.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
How was it for you shooting in Scotland in January and February in the middle of nowhere?
Cold. Very cold.
Was it freezing? And was it nice to be shooting in Scotland for you? Again,
Yeah.
Tim, obviously,
Yeah.
Rob Roy, but you're back.
Yeah. You're beginning to realise what Rob Roy means in Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, this was a big thing. You
What,
know?
everyone asked you?
You were a bad
You
man.
were
That's very nice. I was misunderstood. Same thing. No, we had an absolute blast doing that. So it was nice. Yeah, it was nice to come. It's nice to be up in the sort of hills and doing that stuff.
To have the world premiere at the Glasgow Film Festival, what does that mean to you?
Everything, and especially it's opening it as well. It's very special.
Shooting Tornado in Scotland, it made me fall in love with Scotland and the culture and the people here. So I'm truly honoured to be able to come back to Scotland.
And the movie is Tornado. And finally, a teenager from Tiree has become the youngest British woman to surf the world's biggest waves. 18-year-old Robin Larg surfed a near 15-foot wave at the World Surf League Nazaré Tow Challenge in Portugal. Her brother Ben also made history as the first Scot to compete at the event. He went on to win third after riding waves of up to 35 feet. Wow. That's all from us. Have a good night.